Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Sickle Cell Action Network, a weekly internet radio show presented by Martin Center Sickle Cell Initiative and sponsored by Mass Therapeutics. We're coming to you live from Indianapolis, Indiana, and we're here to serve you by providing up-to-date information and opinion on all matters pertaining to sickle cell disease. My name is Gary A. Gibson, and I am your host for the next 2 hours. Let me start by saying that I don't have sickle cell disease, nor do I carry the sickle cell trait. In spite of that, I am no stranger to sickle cell. Quite the contrary. You see, even though I don't have sickle cell, it has had a very huge impact on my life. That's true because its complications took my wife from me after 12 years of marriage. It also caused her to have a miscarriage that resulted in the loss of our twin babies that she was carrying when in a sickle cell crisis. So all told, sickle cell has taken 3 lives from me, and I feel the pain of those losses every single day. I currently serve as the president and CEO of Martin Center Sickle Cell Initiative, a community-based organization that has been serving people with sickle cell for over 45 years. Each day I attempt to transform the pain of my losses into positive energy that is focused on making a difference for those who are battling sickle cell. From being involved with sickle cell for over 40 years, I'm able to say that much progress has been made, but there is still so much work to do. This show is an opportunity to contribute to the ever-expanding dialogue about sickle cell that is taking place all around the world. Our show is about raising awareness, but it is also about so much more. I like to say that sickle cell awareness is important, but we need more than awareness. Those living with sickle cell are already aware. That makes me ask, so what are we doing for them? My answer is, not enough. That's why we've named this show the Sickle Cell Action Network, because awareness without action has very little impact. We want this show to be a source of information and a call to action to help those who must live with sickle cell in their midst. We have designed the show to provide information that is beneficial to patients, caregivers, family members, and friends alike. Most importantly, we want people with sickle cell to know and understand that they are not alone. The Sickle Cell Action Network show features live guests who are healthcare providers, patients, advocates, and others who are engaged in the fight to eradicate sickle cell and ease its burden on those it affects. Today, we are pleased to have a very special guest who will speak with us about entrepreneurship and sickle cell. Joining me today in studio is Mr. Andre Louissaint. Mr. Louissaint is the owner and operator of Andre's Barbecue and Seafood, a restaurant on wheels that has some of the best tasting food in Indianapolis. We're very happy to have Andre with us today. Before we get to today's topic, however, I want to share some of our upcoming topics with you so that you'll know what we're going to be doing. In future weeks, we will cover such topics as sickle cell's narcotics dilemma, traveling with sickle cell, connecting the sickle cell community, and many, many others. So as you can see, we are serious about sharing information, and we hope that you will join us every week, same time, same station. If you've missed some of our previous editions or wish that you could listen to them again, don't worry. Just go to the Martin Center Sickle Cell Initiative YouTube page, and you'll find them there. Now let's get on with our show, and we'll start with this week's edition of Sickle Cell News Update. On our Sickle Cell News Update today, I've chosen a few stories for you that I think might be interesting. And the first one is titled, New Therapy May Reduce Stroke Risk in Severe Sickle Cell Disease Patients. And the article reads, 11-year-old Martin Mwita of Omaha has made more than 300 visits to healthcare facilities since he was a baby. Because of sickle cell disease, he's suffered 3 strokes and countless other health episodes. A therapy now available through Nebraska Medicine and the University of Nebraska Medical Center will significantly reduce the risk of stroke for children and adults with severe sickle cell disease. The medical center recently began offering the state's first pediatric chronic red blood cell blood exchange in conjunction with the American Red Cross. It offers a more effective and efficient treatment. Sickle cell disease can lead to many complications, including stroke, chronic leg ulcers, frequent pain crises, and blood clots. It can result in an increased susceptibility to infection. About 1 in 600 African Americans has sickle cell disease. Those who could benefit from the therapy are children and adults with a history of stroke or those whose imaging tests show a high risk of stroke. Physicians involved in the new service are Sarah Schunkweiler and Scott Copesell and James Harper. Red cell exchange is not only an iron-neutral procedure, it also can more quickly and more efficiently decrease the percentage of a patient's red blood cells that are sickled, said Dr. Schunkweiler, assistant professor, UNMC Department of Pathology and Microbiology, and medical director of Blood Bank and Tissue Services at Nebraska Medicine. This is the first time that chronic red blood cell exchanges for pediatrics patients have been performed in this area, she said. For sickle cell patients who have already had a stroke, having frequent blood transfusions, chronic transfusion therapy, can decrease their risk of having a second stroke by as much as 90%. However, frequent blood transfusions can lead to a buildup of iron in the body, which can lead to organ damage and eventually organ failure. Red blood cell exchange offers the risk-lowering benefit of frequent blood transfusions, but does so without increasing the iron stored in the body. Patients are connected to an apheresis machine which removes sickled red cells and replaces them with normal red cells from donors. Patients typically have red blood exchanges every 3 to 4 weeks. The exchange usually takes 2 to 3 hours and uses a special kind of chest port that gives children more freedom to participate in activities such as swimming. This is in contrast to chronic transfusion therapy, which is required as frequently as every other week, takes most of a day to complete, and can cause scar tissue, making it difficult to get and maintain good vein access. Currently, 4 patients at the medical center are being treated with the therapy. Dr. Schunkweiler collaborates with Dr. Harper to identify children who need the service. Dr. Harper is a UNMC Associate Professor and Pediatric Hematologist Oncologist at Nebraska Medicine and Children's Hospital and Medical Center. The American Red Cross has been providing therapeutic apheresis services to patients at Nebraska Medicine UNMC for more than 30 years. So there's some hope there with a new procedure that reduces the risk of iron overload, and we certainly hope that that works out and helps many more people. Our next article is titled Jamaican Doc Wins Sickle Cell Research Award. A Jamaican medical practitioner based in Toronto, Dr. Anya McLaren, has received the prestigious Pediatrics Scientific Abstract Award from the American Thoracic Society for her groundbreaking research in sickle cell disease. McLaren, who hails from Kingston, received the honor at the American Thoracic Center International Conference held in San Francisco recently for her research on the effects of hydroxyurea on pulmonary function decline in children with sickle cell disease. In her groundbreaking research, McLaren and her team concluded that the drug hydroxyurea improves pulmonary function in children with sickle cell disease by more than 1/3. For the research, 94 research study participants ages 6 to 20 years were followed for 4 years. Several of their functions, including blood count, liver, and renal functions, were measured at intervals beginning at 3 months. The research found that there was significant improvement in lung function following the use of hydroxyurea. McLaren is a pediatrician specializing in respiratory medicine at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, and the award is given to medical researchers in recognition of their exceptional contribution to the area of pediatrics. In accepting the award at the Marriott Marquis in San Francisco, McLaren expressed her gratitude and appreciation for the honor and for what the study will mean for the treatment of juvenile sickle cell disease in the future. It is tremendously meaningful for the ATS to recognize our work, and I hope that this endorsement will go a long way in improving treatment of the disease for young people, she said. McLaren is a graduate of St. Andrew High School for Girls in Kingston and the University of Toronto. She is also a Fellow of the Royal College of Physicians Canada. She is the daughter of Dr. Ingrid McLaren, Lecturer and Associate Dean of the Faculty of Humanities and Education at the University of West Indies, and Captain Louis McLaren, formerly of the JDF Air Wing and the Sandals Group. Congratulations to Dr. Anya McLaren for her award. And finally, this story, Remembering Eleanor Adams, Such a Strong Woman, is the title. And actually, this is a obituary, but it's of note. Adams, 82, of Harrisburg, died on June 3rd. She was 82 years old. Adams was once honored to receive the National Award for living a triumphant life with sickle cell. She served as secretary of the Sickle Cell Council of Central Pennsylvania and was an inspiration to many people who have the disease. She was a 1952 graduate of William Penn High School and received her bachelor's degree in education in 1956 from Penn State University. Her career path included the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry, Public Welfare, the Dauphin County Child Welfare Agency. She retired from Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. She also worked for 32 years as a Mary Kay cosmetic consultant. She was the widow of Mr. Henry C. Adams. Surviving are a son, Charles Whiting Adams, a sister, Sylvia Duffin Robinson of Harrisburg, numerous nieces, nephews, and cousins. Condolences to the family of Eleanor Adams, but we bring this story out to let people know that with sickle cell disease, you can live up to 82 years old and beyond. We've already told you in the past about a woman living in Africa who has just turned 90. That's Sickle Cell Update for today. We will take a break, and when we return, we will start speaking with our guest, Mr. Andre Louissaint, and this is the Sickle Cell Action Network on RadioNext.tv. Happy to be here with you today on a rainy Tuesday here in Indianapolis. It wasn't supposed to rain. Talked to my producer, Mr. Bell here. It wasn't supposed to rain until later today, but it's been raining almost all day. But that's okay, because it's been pretty dry around here, and we do need the rain. We are speaking today with Mr. Andre Louissaint. And Andre is a really interesting guy, and I'm really happy that he's here with us. And he's going to speak freely, which he always does. He speaks freely. But the first thing I'm going to do is welcome you to the show, Andre.
Well, thank you for being here, Garrett.
All right.
I appreciate it.
So first thing is, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you born? How old are you? And what type of sickle cell do you have? And I ask that question just so the people that are listening can get a sense for who they're listening to.
All right. I was actually born in Haiti. My name is Andre Fritz Anthony Toto Monsieur Louissaint.
Oh my gosh!
Never put it all out there.
You never told me all that.
Right. But that's the real name.
Okay.
And I am 52 years old, and I was told that I have SC disease.
SC. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so our show today is about sickle cell and entrepreneurship. But before we talk about how you conquer that on a daily basis, let's talk a little bit about how sickle cell has affected you personally. Again, this is to help people know. There's a lot of people with sickle cell disease that listen in on the show. One of the things we talk about a lot is how sickle cell affects everybody differently. And it's just helpful information. So if you don't mind, tell us some about what it was like for you growing up with sickle cell.
Well, again, I'm 52 years old, and if I can break sickle cell down in 10-year increments.
That's a good way.
My first introduction with sickle cell, I was 9 years old. We actually went out to the beach. And
now, were you still in Haiti at that time?
I was here in America. Okay. I left Haiti when I was 7 years old.
Okay.
And so I'm here in America now 2 years later. And I remember my uncle, my mom, and a few of the families, we went out to the beach. And I'm running in and out of the water having fun. And all of a sudden, I felt this pain. And now, when I think back, when I go back to my mind in Haiti, it is that same pain that I used to feel that nobody understood what was going on. Mm-hmm. But having hindsight now, looking back at it,
right.
I understood that sickle cell was plaguing me back then,
right.
But nobody had a name for it.
Right.
All I knew, I was just in turmoil pain, couldn't explain it.
Okay.
But again, first introduction, putting the name on this pain, they rushed me out to the hospital because it wouldn't stop. They thought I got bit by a jellyfish or something. I was having some kind of a allergic reaction.
Right.
And we get to the hospital, diagnosed me with sickle cell anemia.
Now, where is this?
This was in Miami, Florida.
Okay.
And being under my mother's guidance as a young man with sickle cell, growing up in school, used to love to play sports. But because of sickle cell, my mom, I didn't think she really understood it. But she told me I had to stop playing basketball because I had the disease.
Uh-huh.
And, the disease, again, will affect your ability to breathe and so forth. And
you didn't want to hear that?
I didn't want to hear that. Now, I love playing ball.
Right.
But what ended up happening to me, when I got about 13, 14 years old, I was introduced to drugs right along with the pain. As I was going through pain crisis, they would shoot me up with Demerol and Vitriol. Now, it was prescribed drugs from the hospital.
Right.
But then as I got older, I began to choose drugs of my own.
Okay.
And what made it worse is that when I would go through a crisis, that I found out that there was pleasure in the drugs that they were giving me, and it caused me to become addicted.
Wow.
To the prescription drugs that they was giving me. But that was short-lived. By the time I became 18 years old, I know I wanted more out of life than what was given to me. You know, I dropped out of school. Sports was something that really kept me in school, but then when my mom got involved with it and told me I had to stop, you know, I didn't have the desire for school, so I kind of went the street route. But you know, I got to give God praise for everything He does in my life. At the age of 18, He got a hold of me, and I sat down and I made some concrete decisions for my life. I didn't want to continue doing drugs. I hated the way I felt because of the sickle cell, and every time it came on me, there was nothing I could do but go to the hospital, and I already knew it. They was going to shoot me up with 75 Visceral, 25 Demerol. And that was just part of my life. Sad to say, I can remember at times that it got so bad for me, I was still in prescriptions, write my own prescriptions out.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And I'm being honest about that.
Okay.
Actually, I had to, the Sickle Cell Center, I spoke to them about it because it got so bad. But after I became a Christian, I made up in my mind that I wasn't going to get involved with drugs at all. And I went for about 6 months, no drugs, in church, having a great time. And all of a sudden, here come a sickle cell crisis. And when the sickle cell crisis came, my mom was like, come on, let's go to the hospital. I said, Mom, I'm not going. And she's like, what you mean you're not going? You know you can't stay and not go. And Gary, I tell you, if there was ever something that you call a power of faith, no one can tell me that God's not real. That particular day, I made up in my mind I was not going to the hospital. My body was clean for like 6 months. I didn't want Demerol, Visceral, marijuana, no alcohol. I didn't want nothing in my system. I felt good. And when it was time to go, I told her I wasn't going. She called the ambulance. They came. And by the time the guy came and knocked on the door, I jumped to go answer the door. And this is the first time that has ever happened to me. The pain went away immediately.
Wow.
And I believe it went away because I believed something that was beyond my own understanding. Now, that was my teens. Now I'm in my 20s. I'm in a position in my life now where I get to make decisions for myself. You know, I didn't have to listen to what Mom had to say.
Right.
It's on me now.
Right.
But during that time, I made a decision that I was going to live life differently. I didn't smoke no more. I didn't drink no more. I was involved with church. And during my 20s, I really didn't have that much crisis in my life at all. I changed my life around completely. I think I was walking in such an avenue of faith that it just propelled me into a different place. It's not like faith has stopped in my life, but as I got into my 30s, it was kind of different. When I got into my 30s, I became a parent. I had my first son,
right,
and which he was diagnosed with SC. But at that time, we was not aware of it then until I had my twins. And that's when I moved here to Indianapolis.
Okay.
And Margaret Smith, after we had the children, had no idea that they had sickle cell. Actually, we was heading to Florida so our family could meet our children. And all of a sudden, the police officer pulls up to my door. I'm like, oh, man, I know I'm not doing nothing crazy. I'm not doing drugs. I'm in church. What they want? And Margaret Smith was trying to make contact with us. And we left so fast that she couldn't contact us. And she found out from someone that we went to Florida for vacation.
Okay.
She hunted me down all the way to Florida to let us know that our children had sickle cell.
Right.
That's how serious the Sickle Cell Center is.
Right.
And since that time, I developed a relationship with Martin Center that was so dear to me.
Right.
And so
Margaret Smith was a former program manager at Martin Center. So yeah. Just
wonderful lady.
Yeah, wonderful lady.
Yeah, I think she ended up retiring some years ago.
Yeah, she's retired now, but she was a wonderful lady, did a lot of good service.
And she really showed me the heart of a servant. You know, all the time I've known her, she have served everybody in the community to the best of her ability.
Even to the point of tracking you down.
Tracking me down and sent a police officer to find me.
That's incredible.
And that's how serious that was.
That's an incredible story.
You know,
in your 30s, let's go to your 40s.
And as I got into my 40s, got into the restaurant business, opened up my first restaurant.
Okay.
It was here in Indy. I began to experience some complications. I went through a divorce during that time, and I think the stress from the divorce alone and then being left with the 3 children was a bit much. You know, and at that particular time, all my family's in Florida. You know, so here I am in a strange land with really no help. And but believe it or not, the Sickle Cell Center really got behind me, and they really helped me through a lot of hard times, making sure I had Gatorade for the children. It was that time when my finances weren't where it needed to be. They would call me and ask me what help I needed, bringing food to the house. And at that particular time, I think I went through one of the most stressful situations of my life as well. Again, going through the divorce, I went through a situation where I had a stroke. You know, not too long after that. Very difficult, and at first I wasn't even aware that I had the stroke. I used to work out all the time in the gym, and I remember I had just got through working out, and I was telling my son, you know, man, my hands was just like numb, and I couldn't understand why. But went to the hospital to check me out, and they thought I was fine, not knowing I had a stroke. They didn't see it, but then I noticed later my leg was bothered from it, and went back again. I'm like, look, this is not me. Something is wrong. And so they did something me through that machine. What do you call that thing?
The MRI? The MRI?
MRI, yeah. Exactly. And when they did it, they noticed I had stroke on my left side, or my right side rather. And so it affected my arm, my leg, my ability to walk. And from there, it was multiple complications. You know, I learned about the priapism situation. You know, it was just one incident after the next. So my 40s was very challenging. And then it takes me right into my 50s. And at this time,
You're still
I don't
early
want to talk
in the
about
50s.
the business.
You're still early in the 50s, right? So
yeah, I'm in my 50s now.
Okay. Well, we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear more from the very interesting Mr. Andre Louissaint.
Hi, I'm Gary A. Gibson, your host for the Sickle Cell Action Network Internet Radio Show. If you are impacted by sickle cell disease in any way, whether you are a patient, a caregiver, or a friend, you need to join me every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I promise that you will find our show to be full of information, perspective, and opinion about all things sickle cell. See you Tuesday right here on RadioNext.tv, the Cool Groove site.
Welcome back to the Sickle Cell Action Network, and I'm Gary A. Gibson, your host, and we are speaking with the outstanding Mr. Andre Louissaint. And he's been giving us his life story by the decade so far, and it's quite fascinating, the things that he has gone through. As we will continue our discussion, I want to go back and clarify with you, who else in your family, your immediate family, has sickle cell? So you've told us about your children, and we'll talk about them in a minute. But from the perspective of your other immediate family, like your mother, your father, or whatever, grandparents.
None of them.
None of them.
Kid you not. It's like it jumped a generation and it found me. You know, or, again, because we are from Haiti, they probably were not educated as to who had it. But one thing that made me think it was my father, I had a picture of him one day doing push-ups. And push-ups was something that helped me out with the priapism. You know, and I don't know if you knew about it, but that was the only relief you can get from it during that time. So it might have come from him, but no one from my mom's side had sickle cell. But again, it might have been because of the lack of knowledge and education about it.
That they weren't really diagnosed. They weren't diagnosed.
Nobody was diagnosed as to having it. My mom was checked out, but she didn't have it.
Did she have sickle cell trait?
Nothing at all.
Wow. Okay. So then the next question is, you have 3 children.
Yep.
And 2 of them.
Actually, I have 4 children.
You have 4 children.
Yep.
2 of them have sickle cell.
Yeah.
And that is your son and your daughter.
And my daughter.
Okay. So how old is your son?
My son now is 24 years old.
Okay.
And he hasn't had any sickle cell crisis at all.
Okay.
So I give praise to God for that.
Okay.
Now, my daughter Bianca, on the other hand, she was diagnosed with the SS disease.
Uh-huh.
And from a young child, she's had multiple complications. She's had a splenectomy. She's had multiple seizures and stroke. She has gone through, a tremendous amount of crisis. And now she has children. She actually had her second child.
Okay.
And neither one of them so far has any sickle cell, not even the trait.
Good.
So, which is a very positive thing.
Yes, it is. It's very positive. It's also very fascinating how sickle cell does that.
Yeah.
And we always tell people that it's just really hard to predict.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, that's fascinating. So how old is Bianca now?
Bianca is 22.
Okay. And Bianca is a very beautiful girl.
Yeah.
She's a very beautiful girl, and we're sorry that she has to suffer with sickle cell disease. So tell us a little bit about the common bond then. So you have a common bond with your daughter and your son with sickle cell. And that's something that's not going to be in most families.
No.
So how do you think that impacts your relationship with your children?
At times, my other daughter think I show favoritism towards Bianca. She felt the same way that her mom showed favoritism.
Okay.
Because when you see your child going through a situation as a parent, you are helpless and hopeless. You always want to be their hero. You always want to be their deliverer. You always want them to know there is nothing that they can go through that you can't help them through it.
Right.
But when you see your child, I can see this picture in my mind. The first time Bianca went to the hospital and they had to stick an IV in her. And she was like, "Daddy, don't let him hurt me." And I'm standing there looking at her. I'm already in tears. And she's crying, reaching out for me. And she's in pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that this IV is going to help her.
Mm-hmm.
But in her mind, I'm allowing them to inflict pain to her.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very difficult thing for me to even just stand there, and holding her hand to me wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I recognized that I needed help. I am dealing with something that is beyond my ability, not only mine, but even the doctors that was helping.
Mm-hmm.
They're yet limited to what can be done.
Mm-hmm.
So when you, as we was talking about earlier about sickle cell, nobody has the patent on it.
Mm-hmm.
It may come one way. We may have a certain understanding and knowledge of it, but I think as time progresses, things changes. Because at first, sickle cell was only in the African community, but now we found out that it's in other communities.
Oh yeah.
Hispanic got it.
Yes.
We've got some white folks with it.
Yes.
And which, in the beginning, it wasn't that way.
Yeah.
And so, trying to really understand it's again, to me, it's a monster.
Mm-hmm.
It's a monster that can't be defeated, but it could be controlled.
Yeah.
It can be maintained.
Mm-hmm.
As patients, I think a lot of time we do ourselves bad service because we know we have this disease, and people perish for what? Lack of knowledge.
Right. Absolutely.
And if we would take time and really educate ourselves as to what is sickle cell, how we can manage it. And if we learn to manage sickle cell, again, we'll be like the young lady you talked about that lived to 82,
Right.
which was surpassed by someone who lived up to 90.
Right.
They talk about that the life of a person with sickle cell disease is what, 30s, 40s?
48 is for women and 42 for men.
And thank God I'm 52.
You're 52.
So
You're 10 years gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
but part of that is because the way I chose to live.
Right. I think that's true.
Let
Let me go back to something that you said, because I think this is important. Is that the caregiver. So your situation is you are not only a patient, but you're a caregiver. And that's something that isn't always true. But the feeling of a caregiver, which I am personally experienced with, that feeling of watching somebody you love going through that agony, that's terrible. It's this feeling of helplessness that you feel. And you did a really good job, I think, of explaining how you felt, where you knew that the IV was ultimately going to help her, but you knew she had to get hurt. She had to get stuck in order for the IV to get in to do the work. But you had to watch that, and you had to feel that pain, and you had to feel that helplessness. And as we talk to people about sickle cell, we also really focus on the emotional impact that it has, not only on the patients, which is significant, but also on those that care for them and live with them and love them, because they have to go through a lot of things that are very difficult as well. You agree?
You know, I have to agree, because even now with my daughter, you know, she's got children, and when I see her go through situations, now she has the SS, I have the SC.
Right.
Hers is much worse than mine.
Worse, yes.
And sometimes I want to try to direct her. I can't direct her to where I haven't been. You know, a lot of time I would tell her, fight it. You know, because with me, every time I go through a crisis, I don't go to a hospital. You know, I don't go and get medicated. You know, I try to keep 800 milligrams of ibuprofen at home. The only time I will go to the hospital is when I can't take it no more.
Right.
When the 800 milligram ibuprofen can't help. And for the most part, you know, dealing with sickle cell myself, that once it starts, you know, normally I drink a lot of fluid anyway. And I think that's just a part of the life of people with sickle cell. You got to stay fully hydrated.
Right.
And if you stay hydrated all the time, and for me, I drink all the time, but you got to drink good stuff. You know, Pepsis and Pops and all that.
No.
That's not good stuff.
No.
Gatorade is very good.
Water
is the best, you know. And I drink tons of water. Not only do I drink water, but I got my employees drinking water, you know. And it helps. These are little simple stuff that would help decrease the amount of crisis that you go through. Because when you're not hydrated properly, your body's looking for that oxygen.
That's right.
It's looking for it.
Right.
And when it can't have it, boom, now your blood cells have turned to a sickle shape, and they're clogged up, and you're getting ready to go through some pain.
Right.
And so staying hydrated all the time as a sickle cell patient is probably one of the best things I can tell you to do.
I think you're right about that, and you cannot overstate the importance of water. Water is mostly oxygen. That's what your body's craving when you have sickle cell. So drink lots and lots of water. So you made a mention earlier, Andre, about that you lost your interest in school. How far did you get?
I made it as far as 9th grade.
9th grade. Okay, and so you dropped out.
I did drop out.
And then what did you do when you dropped out?
Well, I got into drugs.
Started
selling drugs, and actually became a big-time drug dealer in Miami, Florida.
Okay.
And not to make a big story out of this, but this is back in the early 80s when crack cocaine was known as freebasing. The introduction of it was being brought to Miami, Florida by way of Bahamas from the cartel family. Now, again, I was very young, didn't have the knowledge of who these people were. And when they made the introduction to me, and they asked me and my buddy if we wanted to get in on it, they was going to actually take us to Bahamas, teach us how to cook this thing, package it, and distribute it.
Wow.
And prior to me doing that, I got so excited. I was supposed to meet these guys in 2 weeks, and went to celebrate. And part of my celebration, I had some marijuana, I had Fifth of Wild Irish Rose, I had a gram of cocaine, and an ounce of Sinsemillion. And that was part of my celebration. I was getting ready to get this young lady, and we was going to go celebrate. But when I got to her house, the next door neighbor was a very good friend to the family. And we used to get high together. And I saw him get ready to get on the bus. Hey, what's going on, Clyde? And he started talking to me. When I told him what I was doing, he said, man, you're getting ready to die. He said, you do not step into the cartel family. He said, once you get into that family, you don't come out. And he invited me to church. That was my first introduction with church. We never talked about church at home. Church was like a taboo for us. Nobody talked about God, Jesus. That was out of the question. And went to church with Clyde. And that particular morning, everything the minister talked about was about my life. You know? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, why did this guy go tell this preacher about me? But everything came out his mouth until I had to look at my buddy and say, man, why would you bring me here and go tell this guy about my whole life? And he said, man, I didn't say nothing to him. I was with you all this time. You know, I ended up late trying to convince you to come. But then the preacher said something that nobody knew. And he said something very personal and very dear to me. And it touched the essence of my heart. And I knew that day I could not leave that church without making Jesus Christ my Lord.
Okay.
You know, he said either you're going to meet Jesus as your judge or he's going to be your Lord. And then he took time to explain what him being my Lord was and Jesus being my judge was. And he said some people get multiple chances. He said you're getting one shot. You know, and if you don't make a decision today, in 3 months you're going to be dead. Kid you not. Let me make a long story short.
Fascinating.
Because I don't want to take too much time dealing with that because we want to talk about sickle cell.
Yeah, we do, and we want to talk about entrepreneurship and
All right.
sickle cell too. But before we do, one of the least talked about issues with sickle cell is the financial burden that usually comes with it. I've spoken to many, many patients who have thousands and thousands of dollars of medical debt. Is that true for you?
It's true even to today, even me having a business.
Okay. So how do you manage it?
You do and you don't. It's like even me right now. They've given me a medication which is called propofol.
Okay.
That I have to buy, and also Eliquis.
Okay.
Eliquis is $1,400 a month.
Oh my gosh.
All right, and I am right now on disability.
Right.
And Medicare,
right.
doesn't pay for it.
Right.
And so they also gave me warfarin. Warfarin gives me a headache. My head pounds all the time. And what this medication does, it thins your blood.
You're right.
And it helps you so you don't get a stroke.
Right.
If you happen to have a blood clottage, and also I have what they call AFib. And AFib causes you to have irregular heartbeat.
Right.
And when your heart beats irregularly, it also shoots out chunks of blood that's not being pumped out properly. And that will cause you to have, again, a stroke. And so they give you this warfarin, which is supposed to thin out your blood, and also the Eliquis. Now, the Eliquis is not monitored, where the warfarin has to be monitored. And so the Eliquis is actually a better medication, but at $1,400 a month, I can't afford it.
Right. Right.
You know, it's way out my reach. And then at the same time, I have this propofol that I'm supposed to take, and it costs me $140 for a 3-month supply of it.
Wow.
You know, even though I have a business, the business is really maintaining itself. I am not able to function the business and live my regular life. And I understand now how people get hooked up on the system, the welfare system. You can't get out of it.
Right.
You know, you're like on a dead end street that's leading nowhere.
We've talked about that before.
Yeah. You know, if as soon as you start making a little bit of money, once you report it, they decrease the amount that they're giving you, and they put you right back to where you were.
Right.
Can't come out of the system.
Can't win. Well, this is a good time to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with Mr. Andre Louissaint, and we will be back. This is the Sickle Cell Action Network. I'm Gary A. Gibson, your host.
Fast Therapeutics is leading the way in developing treatments for sickle cell disease. We're proud to sponsor the Martin Center Sickle Cell Initiative in its mission to provide leadership, education, and support services to the sickle cell community.
Welcome back to the Sickle Cell Action Network. I'm Gary A. Gibson, your host, and we're speaking with Mr. Andre Louissaint. And actually, Andre, I just see a tweet here from one of our friends, P. Allen Jones, out in California. She's the author of a book called I Only Cry at Night, and she's been on our show before. She's asking a question, and her question is, your guest has a daughter with sickle cell SS, but her children do not have sickle cell trait. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
That is what I'm
They-
saying.
they-
Unless
they-
they diagnose them wrong,
Okay, but they've been tested,
they have both been tested.
and they do not have the disease
Now,
or
the
trait.
father doesn't have no sickle cell at all.
Okay,
And that was the important key.
this is incredible. All right, well, Pam, there's your answer. I hope you're listening still, but that is your answer. That's what he says. Continuing on with the show. Another issue that sickle cell patients face, Andre, is in finding companionship. Now, you were able to have someone for a while, and it is difficult. It is difficult, and we've talked about this on the show with some of our other guests. And it wasn't too long ago that we had a guest that said, as soon as I would tell somebody that I had sickle cell, they wouldn't call me anymore. And that can be that way. So, what was it like for you? Has it been difficult for you finding companionship?
I don't think sickle cell at first was an issue for me in finding a relationship. Most of the time, people are visual. They look at the outward part, or they're somewhat materialistic. They look at what they think you have. But my problem with sickle cell, and I'm not sure if I could even talk about this on the air in reference to priapism. Priapism
Sure
has
you
been
can.
my biggest difficult situation. When I first experienced it, I felt like I was a hero.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But then as time progresses, as I got older, what they said that you will become fibrosis, and once you become fibrosis, it won't function like it should.
Right.
If I can just put it out there
Yes,
like
you can.
that.
Yes, you can.
And so now when you run into someone and you explain that to them, I don't know if this is too much for the show or not, but most women want to make sure that they're going to get with a person
Right.
that they're going to have instant
Right.
satisfaction
Right.
for the length of their relationship.
Mhm.
But when you get with a person that has sickle cell, that has priapism, you don't know how long that is.
Mhm.
And so it would have to be a person that's very compassionate, somebody that's understanding
Right.
to your situation.
Right.
And I think that was part of the reason of my divorce.
Mhm.
When I got divorced, my kid's mom,
Mhm.
that was part of that reason.
Sure.
We had other issues, but then that aided to it.
Sure.
The sickle cell to me hasn't really been, as far as the crisis situation. I think pretty much all my life I've learned to manage it, and I manage it to the point that I don't go through a lot of crisis. Now this year alone, I think I've been at the hospital 3 times already,
Okay.
and which is a lot for
That's
me.
a lot for you. Yeah.
Yeah, a whole lot.
Yeah.
And then I've got multiple things that's going on now. Before it was just a sickle cell crisis, but now I've got the AFib, I got carpal tunnel in my hand, I've got the stroke situation. So along with that, it developed into other things
Complications.
that comes from the sickle cell.
Right. Right.
And when you look at that, it's very difficult. So relationship, again, it can be difficult for sickle cell patients. It takes a person that's very caring, very endearing, to be involved, to be very sympathetic, and understanding as you're going through what you're going through.
Okay. Well, I think hats off to you for your willingness to speak about one of the things people don't speak about very much with sickle cell, and that is priapism. It is okay to talk about this on the show because it is something that happens with sickle cell, and as long as we're not using bad language, it's okay to talk about it. And the fact that you will talk about it, the fact that you're so willing to talk about it, shows just how strong of a man you are. And we definitely appreciate your willingness to share
a lot of people
information.
don't, even though we're saying it. Do you want me to really tell people what priapism is?
I think they know.
You think they know?
I think a lot of them know.
All right.
But yes, and it's
If you don't know, look it up.
It is a terrible thing, and the reason this is something I don't mind you bringing it up, especially because we recently heard a story from a emergency room physician who treated a 19-year-old boy with priapism, who had actually had a priapism event for 4 straight days before he sought treatment. The physician said that by the time they got to him, it was too late to save anything.
Wow.
And when we heard that, the first thing was to start feeling these tears swelling up in my eyes. Because I'm thinking, this is a 19-year-old boy getting ready to hit the prime of his life, and he's going to be ruined emotionally for the rest of his life because they had to castrate him. So that is what sickle cell can do. So one of the things that we want people to know, men, if you have sickle cell and you have these experiences, you do not want to play with it. You do not, and I don't mean that in any bad way, you do not want to wait. You have to go get it taken care of as soon as possible. So anyway, I'm glad you brought that up because that's really important.
Yeah.
So we're going to start talking now a little bit more about the entrepreneurship aspect, but I'm going to get there. But I want to get there in steps. So you gave me your story in decade steps, so I'm going to get to your entrepreneurship in steps. And the first step is, let's talk about your earliest work experiences. Before you became an entrepreneur, you obviously worked for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about your early work experiences. What age did you start working, and what was that job? And you've already told us about the one that, maybe you shouldn't have been in, and
Right.
the one that you got saved from by Brother Clyde. But basically, what kind of work did you do?
Well, this is going to catch you off guard.
Okay.
Actually, my first job, I was 9 years old when I created my first business.
Really?
At the age of 9, I started making these keychains. I actually went to this group center, and they were showing us how you use these little string things and with the key ring.
Uh-huh.
And I started doing that, and I actually started making keychains.
No
and
kidding.
there was very nice keychains. I started going around the neighborhood selling them. And then I started taking orders because people wanted different colors and different things to match
Okay.
their car whatsoever.
Okay.
I employed some of my friends in the neighborhood,
Really?
and I was paying them 50 cents per keychain. And I think because I was a young kid, people liked me.
Uh-huh.
And I was actually selling keychains back in the 80s. I'm sorry, 70s.
Okay.
For like $10 a keychain. That was probably the max
Really?
I got for them.
Okay.
But I had the young kids in the neighborhood helping to make these things. We made them. We actually took them to the flea market, sold them. I was actually making more money than my mom at 9 years old.
So you were literally a small businessman, right? You were small.
I had that spirit of
young guy.
entrepreneurship from a young child.
From day one.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. Did you ever work for anybody else?
Yes.
Okay.
My first job was actually in Hialeah, Florida.
Uh-huh.
Was washing dishes.
Okay.
Because I didn't have no other skills, being that I dropped out of school, and that was actually the easiest thing you can do is get a job washing dishes.
Mm-hmm.
But I happened to get a job washing dishes at this renowned hospital in Hialeah,
Okay.
where they would serve wine with lunch and dinner. And they actually had executive chefs in there.
You're kidding.
And I was so impressed with the food that they were serving, I would hurry up, knock out my dishes, so I can help these guys cut onions or cut potatoes or peel stuff.
Okay.
And so they saw my desire to really want to work, and I would come in every day, knock the dish pots, pans out the way, just so I can do this extra stuff. And one day his sous chef didn't show up, so he asked me to just fill in.
Mm-hmm.
And part of filling in, that's why I think that culinary experience began.
Okay.
For fine food, for a different taste.
Okay.
And already I had an exotic palate coming from Haiti,
Mm-hmm.
here in Miami, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my friends was Jamaicans, Puerto Ricans, and so my palate was very diverse to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm being taught kitchen etiquette. And then later on I got involved. I actually went to school at OIC Hospitality Training.
Okay.
And that was actually here in Indianapolis. I had to get on food stamps because I had me and my 3 children, and I was trying to take care of them. It was very difficult. Got on food stamps, and they sent me to this program where they said that I had to do some kind of schooling for me to stay in the program. And the chef that actually Hightower, he actually, Kevin Hightower is his name. he studied in France, and so he wanted to give back to the community, and got involved with that, and that's where my colony experience really jumped off. Now I know I went forward, so we can go backwards a little bit.
Okay.
And after that job, my other job was a management job at Wendy's.
Okay.
And then from Wendy's, I went to Dobbs House International, and then after that, moved up here to Indianapolis. And after I got to Indy is when MCL Cafeteria hired me.
Okay.
And they had me transported from Miami, Florida, here, and
really? Okay.
And back in '91.
Okay.
And so I've been here from '91 up, and then I worked for some of the fine hotels.
Did you ever tell any of these other employers that you had sickle cell, and if so, how did that go?
No. It never came up because, again, I never even focused on sickle cell. Sickle cell was something that I managed.
Okay.
So I was in control of it.
Okay.
I didn't allow it to control me.
All right.
And even when I found myself going through a crisis again, I would go to work in a crisis. Even to today. I had a crisis not too long ago, and I went to the hospital, and I'm like, look, I got to open in the morning, and I didn't go in there, and, they wanted to admit me, and I'm like, man, I can't be admitted. I got to open the shop.
Got stuff to do.
Yeah. And
Ladies
so
and gentlemen,
as long as I have me some ibuprofen, I'm okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Mr. Andre Louissaint, and he is telling us a tremendous amount of good stuff. We're going to take a break, and when we return, we will continue our discussion with him. This is the Sickle Cell Action Network right here on RadioNext.tv, the foolproof site. To the Sickle Cell Action Network, and we are speaking with Mr. Andre Louissaint, and he's doing a great job of sharing what it's like to live with sickle cell as a 52-year-old man, and he's also sharing information about his early years as an entrepreneur. Told us a great story about being 9 years old and starting a business selling keychains and making a profit. Pretty good stuff. There's a 2010 study that was put out by a sickle cell researcher, Andre. His name is Sean Bediako. And he's written quite a few research studies on sickle cell related items. He said individuals with sickle cell disease are less likely to look for a job when they see their condition as a limitation. Would you agree with that?
That's if they see it as a limitation.
Right.
For me, I never looked at it as a limitation.
I'm about to ask you that next.
I'm cut from a different breed.
Yeah.
But now, let's view what he's talking about. If, again, I was always an entrepreneur, and because I was always an entrepreneur, again, I come from the poorest country in the world.
Yes.
So for me to be here in America, it's the land of opportunity. All right? I look at things differently. And I think if we had that kind of perspective, because if you're looking for somebody to give you something, all right, and looking for a handout all the time, your perspective is wrong. If you're waiting for the cavalry to come, it's not coming. All right, you are the cavalry. You have to be the master of your faith. You set the course for your destiny. Sickle cell, cancer, I don't care what it is. These are debilitating disease that comes to hold you down. And again, you've got to learn to manage that disease or whatever it is. We can call it sickle cell. We can call it anything. For someone, it could be drinking. Don't let anything limit you. You have one life to live. We don't know how long that is. Let's just remove sickle cell out the picture. I know we're talking about sickle cell, but when you're dealing with something like this, we want to talk to the essence of the core of the person. What is it do you want out of life? And that's the first thing you got to set in place. Once you know who you are, then you understand where you got to go and what it's going to take to get there. And so I don't care what's in the way. You just, like you said earlier, and I caught that, you have used that situation as fuel when you lost your wife and your 2 children to sickle cell. Look what it's done for you now. All right? You are the head of the Sickle Cell Center here in Indianapolis. You don't even have sickle cell, but you have taken that pain and redirected that pain until that pain now is bringing deliverance to a whole bunch of people. All right? And so when you think about the fact that you've got a disease and you're not going to look for a job, all you've done is just sentence yourself to death. All right? The government can't take care of you. It's not their job. All right? You are the master of your faith. Whatever you want out of life, I don't care if you got SS disease with something else attached to it. You can still achieve anything in life you want. All right? Life is limited. Again, we don't know how much time we have. You know, we can put a number on how long they think you can live, but you got somebody, again, who lived 90. Today belongs to you. Tomorrow's not yours. So for me, I live life on a daily basis. I accomplish as much as I can today. Today is mine. I've seen today. I've woke up today. And what I have today, I'm going to try to accomplish as much as I can. I'm not going to be bothered about tomorrow. All my energy is going to be directed today. And whatever I can plant today, I'm going to reap the harvest for it tomorrow.
Andre Louissaint, this man is awesome. I hope you all out there are listening and paying attention, because he's telling it just like it is. So you own and operate Andre's Barbecue and Seafood. And the food is quite tasty, I must say. So I'm going to put a plug in for you for anybody in our area. You got to check out Andre's food. Tell us a little bit how you got started with that.
Well, actually got started, really, I got started up in Anderson when I first moved to Indiana. Worked for MCL Cafeteria. At night, everything closed early, and I love food with flavor, and there wasn't that much going on. And opened up the first restaurant there, but then I ended up going through all this divorce situation, shut it down. Here I'm living in Indy now. And to really explain it to you, it's not going to make a lot of sense. All right? I had actually had a dream about a place. And when I had this dream about this place, I told someone, I said, man, I've been telling you, you just described this building that's on 38 in High School Road. And when they told me about the building, I went and looked at it. It was exactly what I saw in the dream. And went and spoke to the people about it. And long story short, part of the dream said to me, in this dream, whatever you ask for, I'll give it to you. Wherever your feet tread on, it'll be yours. You know, if you seek it, you'll find it. But when I woke up from the dream, it was actually a guy on the TV prophesying to someone. But in the dream, he was speaking to me prophetically. All right? And I kid you, like, my whole life is a testimony. And woke up from that dream, went, saw the place, spoke to the guy, and they wanted, like, I think $12 a square footage. But part of the dream, whatever you ask for, you have it. So I threw some ridiculous number out there. I said $4 a square feet. And then I want 6 months free rent first getting into it. They agreed to it. We signed the contract. We got going. But went through another divorce. And when I went through that divorce, that restaurant got shut down. And you know, not too long ago, I ended up opening another restaurant. Had one out on High School Road. I'm sorry, on 46 in Keystone. 4315 North Keystone, and then Pendleton Pike. Both jumped off, was doing good, and out of nowhere, on the grill, teaching this guy on safety. He got ready to pull the grate off to clean the grill out, and I told him, if you have two people there, let both of you take the grate off. I said, I understand, you know, young guy, real strong. So he was getting ready to snatch the thing off. And again, safety for me is always a major issue. So I explained that to him. We both went to take the grate off, and all of a sudden, I started screaming. And my back went out on me. And I hit the ground, called the ambulance, took me to the hospital. And for about 2 months, I think I was in a hospital. Tremendous pain. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Even to today, I'm still going through complications from that. End up seeing a chiropractor. A month later, she had me walking, but I went for 6 months of going through therapy. I'm actually still in therapy right now for the situation. And when that happened, ended up having to shut down both restaurants again. But do I let that stop me, Gary? I believe I've got something I believe through the years of working with these world-renowned chefs, I learned the essence of the restaurant industry. You can have all the money you want. You can go to school and get all the education, but the restaurant, you have to learn the nature of the beast. I understand it from a business perspective. I understand it from the employee standpoint. I'm a bottom lines person, and I produce some of the best product.
Speaking about your product, what kind of food do you have on the menu these days?
Well, I really call it international cuisine. Now, I'm limited on what I can sell where I'm at because I have shrimp up next to me. And because shrimp up next to me and I know them, so I don't want to get into a bad relationship.
Right.
So I don't sell the seafood.
Okay.
All I do sell is the barbecue.
Okay.
Now, with the barbecue, you can get pulled pork, pulled chicken. You can get the full slabs. You can get baby back. You can get hot links, chicken wings. And the chicken wings, I've got multiple flavors that you can get. And then for our sides, we got collard greens, candy yams, red beans and rice, Caribbean rice, potato salad, fried corn, Cajun corn, and once a week we alternate the Caribbean rice with jambalaya. And then we also have the French fries.
Okay.
Every dinner you can get 2 sides.
Okay.
And then we also have family platters, barbecue platters. I think I got something that meets everybody's needs.
Are you open every day?
I am open from Tuesday through Saturday. We
Okay.
open at 11 o'clock Tuesday through Thursday. We close at 9, and on the weekends we go to 10.
Okay.
If
Okay.
business keep coming, we'll stay open later.
All right. Okay. So, and where are you?
I am at 7211 North Michigan Road.
Right.
I am right next door to Kentucky Fried Chicken and then the Shell gas station.
You have had, I've had some of the Caribbean rice.
Yeah.
I've had the barbecue chicken. Both are all very, very good stuff. Very good stuff. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with Andre Louissaint. This is the Sickle Cell Action Network. I'm Gary A. Gibson, your host. Welcome back to the Sickle Cell Action Network. The Sickle Cell Action Network show is sponsored by Mass Therapeutics, a publicly traded biopharmaceutical company headquartered in San Diego, California. MAST is currently leveraging the molecular adhesion and sealant technology platform derived from over 2 decades of clinical, non-clinical, and manufacturing experience with purified and non-purified polaxamers. MAST has developed a drug called MST-188 as a candidate for serious or life-threatening diseases with significant unmet needs. Among those needs is the treatment of sickle cell disease. MAST has enrolled sickle cell patients in a clinical trial known as EPIC. EPIC stands for the Evaluation of Purified Polaxamer in Crisis. If successful, EPIC could result in the first treatment of its kind to treat sickle cell disease patients while they are in crisis. The EPIC study aims to determine whether MST-188 can shorten the duration of a painful crisis. MST-188 is an investigational drug that has not been approved for commercial sale in any jurisdiction for any use. MST-188 potentially improves oxygen delivery, and it may help keep blood vessels from becoming blocked and more obstructed. It may improve blood flow by stopping cells from grouping together. It also may reduce inflammation, and it may restore cell membranes and give damaged cells time to heal. EPIC participants continue to receive their normal pain treatments during crisis, and their participation is free of charge to them. The patients involved in the EPIC study may not only be helping themselves, but they might also be helping future generations of those yet to be born. If you are interested in learning more about the EPIC study, please visit www.theepicstudy.com. And we are speaking with Mr. Andre Louissaint, and he is the owner-operator of Andre's Barbecue and Seafood, and he's had a long life of entrepreneurship. Andre, do you have a favorite item that you like to prepare? You told us about your menu before the break, but is there something you really like to make?
I think the dish that I like the most, I call it the Rose of Sharon.
The Rose of Sharon.
The Rose of Sharon.
Okay. And what is that?
It's not a dish that you would find on a daily basis. This is my own creation, pretty much.
Sure.
And what it is, I make a shrimp fried crab rice.
Okay.
All right. And I lay that on a tray. and then I would get these lobster tails, 2 in particular. This feeds about 8 people.
Okay.
And I would get these 2 lobster tails, and I would pull the tail out of the lobster, and I would butterfly the lobster open, and I would stuff the lobster tail with shrimp, crab meat, broccoli, and cheese. And I would stuff that in there, roll it up, tie it up, and then I would bake it. And then I would take the tail, and I would stuff the tail with the same mixture, and I would bake the tail off.
Okay.
And then while that's going, I would get some what they call U shrimp, some of the biggest shrimps out there.
Okay.
And I would either make a jerk shrimp, or I would make a shrimp scampi. And what I would do, again, part of this creation, that would become the head of this creation that I make.
Okay.
Just follow with me.
I'm following you. Okay.
And then when the lobster tail is done, I would take it, and that would become the body of this creation.
Okay.
And then I would take the tail and put it on the back end. So you got 2 tails back here. You got the 2 lobsters that represent the body, and the head of it, which would be the shrimp. And I would take 2 cherries, and I would stick it in there as the eyes.
Okay.
And then I would get 6 crab legs, 2 claws, and the rest of the body of it. And so you got the head, you got the 2 crab legs, and then you got the other 4 legs, and then you got the tail coming out. All right? And when you look at this, it is what you call the utopia of food.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
You've got the best that the sea has to offer. And I would make this lemon butter sauce that you would serve it with. And then I would get a couple of tomatoes. I would carve it into some rolls, and I would sit it there on the tray as a signature dish called the Rose of Sharon.
How did you come up with that?
God.
A dream or something? God?
Again,
Okay.
I kid you not, God gave this to me in a dream.
Okay.
During that time, after I became a Christian, most of the dish that you will see at Andre's are my own recipes. Even the collard greens are not your basic collard greens. Again, because I have this diverse palate, I use Latin season, Jamaican season. So the food is just so full of flavor. I call it fusion cooking.
Yes, right.
I would infuse the different seasoning that from different continents, and I would incorporate everything together with what I'm doing. And your collard greens is no longer collard greens. Even the macaroni and cheese, it's not your everyday macaroni and cheese. So if you're tired of just the basic and the norm, come to Andre's and try something that's going to take you to the islands and bring you back for Faction of the Cross.
The Rose of Sharon. That is so cool. You know, Andre, like most other business people, you've had your share of challenges. You've talked about some of them already. And like most successful business people, you never seem to give up. Why is that?
You can't stop. You believe in something. Let me use Colonel Sanders, for instance. Colonel Sanders was 67 years old when he stepped out. He, at that time, he had retired, and he had his retirement check. And he had developed this 11 herbs and spices. And Colonel Sanders bought this white suit with his check, went out and started knocking on everybody's door, trying to get somebody to believe what he believes.
Right.
And he went out and knocked on 115 doors, and everybody said no. And then finally one day, somebody saw it the same way he saw it. Again, he was at 67 when he got started.
Right.
All right? And now it's history. Colonel Sanders is all over the place. He have left a legacy. All right? Most people that has a dream, that has something that is original, all right? They believe something. They believe they have something, just like I do. And just because of failure after failure, all failure is success turned inside out, I heard somebody say. And I know eventually, if I stop, then it's over. All right?
Right, right.
I heard some, and I don't play the lottery, but they said if you don't play, you'll never win.
That's true.
Okay? So if you don't continue at it, it stops. But I believe I have something that's going to change my family's focus. And I'm not a person that's into racial stuff, but part of the black community, you don't see the black community having any restaurants that relates to them. I see the Hispanic people, Chinese people, and the biggest thing we have is Gladys. All right, and that's only 2 restaurants. And then we got now, I think, Sweet Peas, they call it. They went on an Oprah show, and she helped them open up a place, and they're opening up the 2nd restaurant now. I believe I understand this business so good. For me, I've never had money to get it done. I've always operated from a meager standpoint. But Gary, one day I am going to achieve what I want to achieve, and I'm going to put this restaurant on the map like I know I should. God has graced me where I got hired by Krispy Kreme Donut. They sent me out to Salem, North Carolina. They gave me education I couldn't pay for. They taught us how to hire people. They taught us H&R, how to look for the 5 percenters. They teach you how to documentation. All right, they taught me so much good stuff. MCL cafeteria. They gave me understanding of a cooking that, again, I just hired a young lady that went to the Culinary Institute. All right, she worked with me for 2 months and I had to let her go. All right, she's in an institution that she had to pay $17,000. She didn't get what she should have gotten. All right, what they trained me, again, I've been in the business for years. I've learned so much stuff. I didn't have to pay for that education. Everything with me was hands-on. So I think God graced me and gave me mercy, and took me into an avenue of life that has compensated for what you would call a deficiency in my life with the sickle cell.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
And
so what are your future plans then? It sounds like you're already dreaming. You got your plans.
Man, I'm not dreaming. I'm awake.
You're awake. Okay.
I'm wide awake.
I love that.
A lot of people, they still sleep with it.
Okay, so what is this? Is it Andre's? Because it's still going to be Andre's.
Let me tell you, my true
or
desire
yeah.
is to open up a restaurant here in the city that sits about 250 people.
Okay.
That I can have live entertainment while you enjoying this food. As I was listening to this wonderful jazz music,
right,
I would like to have a place where I have live jazz band on there on a regular basis.
Okay.
That's what I'm working towards.
Okay.
And right now I'm using the avenues, the small steps to help me get there. It's going to happen. Mark my word, Gary. I am 52 years old, okay? And I've all life has given me is just more experience. I've got more fuel now to the fire. I don't understand what the word no mean, or I can't do it, or I'm limited because of finances. Whenever I need money, it comes to me. I can't explain to you how this thing works. I'm not going out begging for it, all right? I work for it every day. And every day I go out there, I'm going to make it happen. If I don't go out there, it won't happen.
Mr. Andre Louissaint, we are going to come back after a break, and our last break, and then we'll continue and finalize our discussion with this outstanding man. This is the Sickle Cell Action Network. I'm Gary A. Gibson, your host, and you're listening to RadioNext.TV, the cool group.
Hi, I'm Gary A. Gibson, your host for the Sickle Cell Action Network Internet Radio Show. If you are impacted by sickle cell disease in any way, whether you are a patient, a caregiver, or a friend, you need to join me every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I promise that you will find our show to be full of information, perspective, and opinion about all things sickle cell. See you Tuesday right here on RadioNext.TV, the Cool Groove site.
Welcome back to the Sickle Cell Action Network. We're speaking with Andre Louissaint, and I just told him he's going to be a hard act to follow for the next guest. But, Andre, a couple years ago, you had the chance to talk to a group of investors and researchers at the annual Sickle Cell Conference put on by our sponsor, Mass Therapeutics. I was there with you in New York, and I think that you did an outstanding job. I heard that I wasn't the only one who thought that. A lot of other people think you did an outstanding job. What are your thoughts about that experience?
That was, Gary, my first experience of really sharing my story about sickle cell.
With a whole group of strangers, and you acted as if you knew them.
Well, to me, they really wasn't strangers. They were the educators of it.
Mm-hmm.
They were the people that holds the they were, to me, the gatekeepers of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted them to know. And the only way they're going to know, sometimes people are scared to share stuff. And if you hold it in and don't let it go out, all right, a lot of things to them is still in theory.
Mm-hmm.
They're yet still practicing medicine.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't gotten a full understanding of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I can give them, the more they can give back. The more they can understand how to help.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're dealing with a pain that diversifies itself into so many different things, and until you become very expressive and really put your heart out, you know, for me it's not a show. Like even this is not a show. This is reality.
Yes, it is.
This is the life I live daily, you know, and until I can express that to people, and I promise you, Gary, I'm not the only one. There's a lot of other sickle cell patient that feels the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like the unborn child. Somebody got to be the voice for them.
Right.
You know, when people take it upon themselves to have a when you kill the child, abortion. Somebody got to speak for that child. It can't speak for itself.
Right.
You know, it's not even here yet, and somebody has made a decision for its life. Well, the same thing with sickle cell. You know, the doctors they're limited in their understanding, and that's why they're doing research. They're trying to really understand this. They really want to help,
Mm-hmm.
but again, they're limited in their knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's our job as a sickle cell patient to really help educate them,
Mm-hmm.
to take them to the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's one thing to do all the tests, but they don't know how we feel.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what we go through when we experience this pain that wakes us up at night, or when you go through the priapism that keeps you going for a couple of days, or when you experience the fact that you're about to lose your eyesight, you know, but you're still trying to see, and you're losing your hearing. You know, all these complications that come from it. You know, again, it's theory, but we bring reality to it. We bring life to it. And with me, being there was an opportunity, you know, because here you got people that has groundbreaking medicine that might be able to help. Maybe something I said, I don't know, maybe something I've expressed will fine tune them into that direction. You know, everything about life is an unction sometimes. You don't have the full story. You know, it's just like me in my prayer life. I pray constantly. I don't know which prayer is going to deliver me. I don't know which side, which eye is going to help me get to the next move. So if I don't pray, I don't get an answer. So I constantly pray. You know, you got to take life passionately. You know, I don't care if you're sick, you're not sick, whatever you want to do in life, you got to do it with passion.
Absolutely. Another thing that I admire about you, Andre, is that you don't ever give up. I know some of what you've been through, and I also see that you keep fighting day after day after day. How, why do you manage to do that?
If you don't fight, then you don't win. You know, you stop fighting, you lost already.
That's right.
You know, it's over.
Right.
And it will take you down a road of depression. Depression is looking for people every day.
Yes, it is.
All right.
And it likes to pick on people with sickle cell, too.
Personally, yes.
Yes.
You know, but you've got to be... You know what makes Merriweather undisputed?
What's that?
Because he haven't lost one fight.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And because he haven't lost a fight, you got a lot of people want to fight him.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how you got to view yourself as a sickle cell patient.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no matter what the challenges come, I don't care. It may look like you're getting beat up. I done seen so many times look like he was about to lose the fight.
Mm-hmm.
But because he never knocked nobody out. Okay? I've never seen him knock nobody out in the ring.
Okay.
But he has fought people who has knocked out many people. But the one thing about Merriweather, He is skilled boxer. He'll dance around every punch you throw at him. You really can't hit him, and the guys that get close enough may get 1 or 2 punches, but he'll tiptoe through that whole ring. I'll be honest, I hate to watch his fight because there's nothing exciting about it.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
But he's multi-millionaire
Yeah.
because he never loses. And this is where we got to put our mindset at. I don't care what it looks like. Don't lose. Don't stop fighting. If you fight, you win.
I love that because that's something I say a lot. Okay, so I think my second to last question for you today. Imagine that you had a chance to talk to a group of young boys at a camp for kids with sickle cell. What would you tell them to keep them motivated to grow up and be strong like you?
First thing I would tell them is take ownership of the sickle cell. I would tell them to own it. Don't let it own you. Learn all you need to learn about the sickle cell. Then I would tell them some of the possibilities of what might happen with you with sickle cell. So when they get into those areas of their life, it's nothing new. They've heard about it, and then I would tell them what they need to do to prepare themselves for it. If this might happen, if priapism may show up, if you go through this crisis, if for some reason you find yourself addicted, to the prescription drug, it's okay. It's not your fault. You didn't just do this. This is something that you've inherited. But even as you've inherited, you can learn to keep some things and get rid of some stuff. Just like me, I inherited it. I wasn't a drug user. It just came with the sickle cell. But manage it. Manage it to the fact that even to today, Gary, I tell you, I won't go to the hospital unless it's necessary. I keep some ibuprofen at home. I take an ibuprofen if I feel the pain. I won't even take it until the pain is unbearable. And then I would take it. I already know the pain is going to be there. It's nothing new. You just got to learn to manage it. You just got to have that perseverance. And I would tell them, prepare yourself for the worst. It's going to come. Again, sickle cell branches out in so many different things. We don't know what might come new. But if they can get the fundamentals down as to sickle cell, again, hydrating yourself properly, drink a lot. Don't get caught up in alcohol and all that. That's not necessary. You can be high on life. I'm high right now. Okay? I'm high on life. I'm enjoying life.
I think that shows.
Yeah. And there's so many things in life that's just worth living for. When you do different things to your body, you're destroying yourself. You don't need to smoke. What is cigarette going to do for you? You're putting something in your body that's just going to destroy you. Enjoy life. Put some good stuff in there. Right now I'm juicing. I'm giving my body the best. But see, if I would have knew this stuff, if somebody would have took time and educated me when I was young, like what you're talking right now,
right.
If they knew, again, we perish for lack of knowledge.
We do.
Somebody got to inform these kids. Nobody taught me how to be a man. I had to go through the hard way and learn. My father wasn't there. All right? I had to become a man myself. Did I make mistakes? Tons of them. But I learned from them. And those things I know that didn't work, I got rid of it. And I just worked on the things I know that's progressive, that is propelling me into the place where I want to go. Am I there yet? Not yet. But you know what? That's what makes it exciting. I've got a future to look forward. I look forward to waking up the next day. At the end of my night, I go home and I reflect on the day and I set a plan for tomorrow. And so I look forward to tomorrow. I don't care how hard I know tomorrow's going to be. Sometimes I know tomorrow's going to be hard, but I plug my mind in, I set a course of action, and I'm willing to tackle tomorrow. I don't care what it's going to bring, whether good or bad. It's life. Enjoy it.
Mr. Andre Louissaint, thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm very glad that you came. Hopefully our audience is as well. We have seen a couple of tweets where people say that it's been inspiring, so thank you for being here and sharing yourself and helping others. And I do think that you could perhaps help us on one of our future shows, and if we get to the point where we get that schedule, we'll contact you and see if you're available to come.
Sounds good.
Okay, and when you do come, our producer wants you to bring some of your food.
I'll make sure I do that.
How that works. It's time to close the show. As always, I close the show with the thought for you, and today's closing quote comes from the Reverend Robert Schuller, who said, "Tough times never last, but tough people do." Robert Schuller, born in 1926, passed away in April of 2015. He was an American Christian televangelist, pastor, motivational speaker, and author. He was principally known for the weekly Hour of Power television program, which he began hosting in 1970 until his retirement in 2010. He was also the founder of the Crystal Cathedral in Garden Grove, California. So what do you think of when you hear the word tough? Do you think about some massive Super Duty pickup truck? Or do you think about a 6'6", 320-pound defensive end on somebody's football team? If these things don't come to mind when you hear the word tough, then maybe you think about something like steel-reinforced concrete, or a piece of barbecued chicken that stayed on the backyard grill for far too long. All kinds of people have all kinds of ideas about what tough means. For me, when I think of tough, I think of people who live with sickle cell disease. You know, every time that there is a major disaster or tragedy like the one that took place in Orlando a few nights ago, people say, "We're resilient. We'll get through this, and we'll be better off for it." If it doesn't matter if it's a hurricane, a tornado, a flood, or a terrorist attack, everyone always says something like, "We're resilient, we're tough, and we can handle this." And though they don't say it like that, I think that the actions of sickle cell patients speak the same language when it comes to overcoming a bad pain crisis. In other words, continuing on after a major crisis is like saying, "I'm resilient, I'm tough, and I can get through this." That's what I see every time that I see a sickle cell patient after they've gotten out of the hospital. Throughout my life, I've been fortunate to meet and interact with hundreds of sickle cell patients. Whether they are young or old, male or female, it doesn't make much difference. In my mind, they are all tough, and they are all resilient. Many of them may not really think of themselves in that way, but it doesn't change the truth about them. The truth is that these amazing warriors give me and many other people a whole lot of inspiration. I know that most sickle cell patients aren't trying to inspire us, but again, that doesn't change the truth about their impact on those of us who stand with them in their battle against their condition. This brings me back to Reverend Schuller's words, "Tough times never last, but tough people do." Think about those words for a moment. They have a powerful message under their surface, and that message is contained in the word last. Last is a word that refers to longevity. Speaking of longevity, I have to say that of the many people with sickle cell that I have met, there have been quite a few who are no longer with us. But though they may be gone in body, they are not gone in spirit and in mind. They have left behind a legacy of toughness and resilience that most people can only dream about. They have shown that they have conquered their illness by not giving up. By the way, that is how you win any battle. You win by never, ever giving up. And when you live like that, you prove Reverend Schuller right. That's true because those you left behind will always remember you and your toughness will inspire them long